This episode is brought to you by Standard Deviant Brewing. Check them out at their Mission Tap Room, located on 14th Street between Mission and Van Ness. They're in your favorite bars and restaurants throughout the city, and, coming this spring, visit Standard Deviant at their new location in the Pier 70 development in the Dog Patch. That new spot is set for its grand opening on April 1st. I guarantee it. Also be sure to check out what everyone is talking about, the Forever Deviant Loyalty Program. An opportunity to pay a one-time fee now to lock in cheap beers for life. Standard Deviant Brewing, makers of the coldest tasting beer in San Francisco since 2016. If you'd like to advertise on Storied San Francisco, please contact us at storiedsf@gmail.com.
But we started having parties, and people were drinking the wine and enjoying it, and it was very encouraging, But then, at what point do you think, oh, you should do this, you should take this to a different level, and how much of that is just friends being nice?
That was Barbara Gratta, owner, operator, and winemaker at Gratta Wines and Market on 3rd Street in the Bayview. I'm Jeff. And this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city unlike any other in the world. In this episode, we pick up where we left off in part 1. Barbara shares the story of her foray into winemaking, first at her home near Dolores Park, then to the garage of the house she lives in to this day, and now to the winery next to her wine bar and Italian market on 3rd Street. Here's the conclusion of my chat with Barbara Gratta. So as a youngish San Franciscan, I have to ask, did you spend any time in the Mission? Like the Mission in those days was known for its lesbian bars.
Yeah.
Was that a thing for you?
I mean, I started in the Castro hanging out, and funny enough, I knew a woman here that had moved out from Sarasota. Oh. And she befriended me again once she knew I was out here. So she introduced me around and, actually introduced me to my first girlfriend. Oh. At the time. At that time. Yeah, a little matchmaker situation. And we would hang out in the Castro when, for example, Café Flore was still with the fireplace and, before that changed over there. Yeah. So that was sort of a hangout spot for this particular group that I was hanging out with at the time. But at some point, I moved to the Mission because I was subletting places here and there. And then when the company said, well, we're not going to renew your contract, but we'll hire you.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
I ended up taking the job and staying. And,
where in the Mission?
I got a place at 19th and Dolores.
Oh,
right across
by
from
the park.
Right there.
Excellent.
I loved living in that place.
Yeah.
That was a great little neighborhood. Before Dolores Park Cafe opened, I mean, none of that was there.
Right.
It was still a little sketch.
Okay. Even at the park?
Even at the park, yeah. It was very, you wouldn't want to walk through that park at certain times of the night, know. And then things started changing, like, Dolores Park Cafe opened up. I don't remember what's the market over there? Bi-Rite. They came after, a little bit after.
I don't know when, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that started changing things. But at that time, I ended up moving to the Castro with my new partner. And we lived there for a couple years before we moved to Bayview. And then I've been out in Bayview since '99.
Oh, wow. You've been here a minute.
Yes.
And you were working that now full-time physical therapy job.
Yeah, I was working full-time in that world, the physical therapy world, for a good 15 years.
When, Barbara, do you think it set in for you that you're like, I live here, and this is just what I do and where I live?
Yeah, I would say when I was living on Dolores.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when I'd get on the rooftop of that building and watch the 4th of July. Isn't it the 4th of July that the mime troupe does?
Yes.
Every year in the park over there. It's like, this is your home now. Look at that.
Yeah.
Right over there,
Yeah, it's fucking magic.
Magic. It's a great place.
It's a little bit every day.
Pretty much.
We just have this, all this stuff.
Yeah.
How do we get from there? I'm guessing winemaking was the first.
Yes,
How did you- how
hobby
did-
winemaking.
Okay.
A coworker's husband. He was making wine as a hobby with some buddies of his, and he said to me, says the Irish man, what kind of an Italian are you? You've never made wine. So I said,
You call yourself an Italian.
what? You Irish person, you just what?
You can curse on this
I said, all right,
podcast.
so, set me up.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yep.
And he did. He set me up with the grower and told me what equipment to buy, and he sort of mentored me for a couple of years, and I did it. That was 97, was the first year I made wine.
Before that, had you explored any of quote unquote wine country? Mostly to the north, a little bit to the south.
Interestingly,
some to the east.
We didn't drink good wine when
Yeah.
I was growing up.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
It was harder to find at the time.
I think
right?
so.
Yeah.
And I never, ever experienced a red Zinfandel until I moved here.
Wow.
Only that
White.
Zinfandel that we all know, right? So
Yeah.
another coworker actually turned me on to Zin from down in Cupertino, Ridge. She was a big fan. We used to buy cases of the wine together.
Okay.
And we started having we would do little wine experiences around the city. We'd go out to eat at Harris Steakhouse. I was she loved that place. So we
Yeah.
would go there, we'd order a nice bottle of wine. So she was introducing me to that world just as far as enjoying wine, better wines. And then when he, I don't want to say solicited me, but when he did what he did to
Nudged,
challenged me,
dared
me. He dared me.
dared,
That
yeah.
was what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're making Zin. So that's the first one I made, and
Okay.
it was great. So that's how I started making wine.
And what, I guess, volume are we talking?
Yeah, it was small. Another friend from the department and she and I partnered up on it. So we did 30 gallons, which is like 500 pounds, half a ton, a quarter of a ton.
Is that more than a barrel?
That's this size barrel, 30
It's
gallons.
a 30-gallon barrel.
It's a
Okay,
30-gallon barrel.
Convenient.
And we did it in the basement on Dolores.
Oh, wow.
In that building I lived in. Yeah.
And are we talking, you source the grapes, are we crushing the grapes from that point on, or where in the process?
We had them crushed for us.
Okay.
We brought them back in these big, the 44, like a garbage can size container. And we schlepped it out of the trunk. Well, we used his truck the first time, dragged it into that basement on Dolores Street.
That's got to be heavy as hell.
It was heavy as hell. And then it was like that dusty, old, moldy basement.
Yeah.
And we just twice a day, you had to go in there and mix the skin. So she and I took turns caring for it during the fermentation.
Okay.
And then we had a little bottling party with her boyfriend at the time and Kathy, who I was with, who I'm still with at the time.
Oh.
And yeah, we bottled it together and we each got like 12 cases out of it.
Oh.
Or no, yeah, 12, it's like 12 cases total.
Total, and
out of a
each used
30 gallon.
6.
And we had
That's-
fun with it. It was
yeah.
just a fun little thing to do. She didn't want to do it the next year.
Okay.
So I did it myself. And that was that time we did it in the Castro, in the basement of that flat we lived in on Hartford. And
what year are we talking?
97
The first one.
97
was the
first
first
year.
one. Okay.
98 was the second one. And then 99, I started with a different grower, which is the same one that I have now,
Up in Dry Creek.
up in Dry Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still making, at the time,
Small
Zin?
amounts, only
Still
Zin.
Okay.
Only Zin until 2009. And we did a Cabernet. And then we started making some different varietals, like 2010, 11.
Were you, and so who were you making the wine for where we are now?
Just us and friends.
Friends, and you just always
We
have
just
your
would have
wine.
parties. We started doing these tasting parties in our basement here in Bayview, and the house we're in sort of had this. It was originally a bar and a hair salon.
Okay.
Yes, I know.
Maybe after the haircut.
It was really a weird setup. So we just set it up. We did this bar thing, cleaned out the hair salon and the dryers and all that. But we started having parties, and people were drinking the wine and enjoying it, and it was very encouraging, you know. But then, you know, at what point do you think, oh, you should do this, you should take this to a different level, and how much of that is just friends being nice? Right. So then we had a couple opportunities here in the neighborhood to have other people outside of our circle try it.
Okay.
There was a gallery, and I'll name them. And I just saw Sarah yesterday, Art 94124. She came in here to do her garage blend bottle, and she offered an opportunity to me. I'm trying to remember the year of this. It might have been 2012, maybe.
Okay.
And there's a little gallery down at 3rd Street and Fairfax. And she had this space where she would do artwork. It was a collective.
Okay,
Art
where she show art? Or,
yes,
okay.
Art 94124. It was the collective. And she did some kind of a reception, and she invited me to serve my wine there that day. And people came in after something at the shipyard, and they ended there at the gallery, and all these people got to try. All I had at the time was my dessert wine, 2008 dessert wine.
Oh.
So it might have been a little earlier. It might have actually been 2010.
Okay.
Then that she invited me over there. So I started having opportunities like that in this community, meeting people around Bayview, and then I decided to go for it.
And that, at that time, before you decided to go for it, did that at first satisfy the whole take it to the next level? Or, like, were you just kind of figuring out what that meant?
I think so.
As you go?
Going along as you, figuring it out as you go. And you know what? I'm actually absolutely wrong on the date, because I got permitted in 2006 in my garage here in Bayview. So it must have been before that. It must have been in the earlier 2000s before we got permitted, because it doesn't really matter, but that was the opportunity that sort of got me started. And then once we did get permitted, which was a challenge, because we had to challenge the Board of Appeals because of zoning, and it was like all of that. I don't think it would ever happen again today, but I had opportunities that pointed me in that direction. It's like, just keep moving forward with this.
And I mean, that permitting process, does it hinge on, or like is part of it whether you're going to be selling it, or
yes,
I mean, doing a tasting at a wine art gallery is different than selling bottles.
Yes,
right.
It is. Yet to do that type of event, technically you should be a legitimate operation. If people, I mean, but if you're not charging for it, that's the caveat, right? You're not charging for it. You're just offering. You're bringing wine to a party or an event, and people are drinking it.
Yeah. So that went really well.
It did. People enjoyed the wine, and it was encouraging. And then I continued just to make the wine. I was still just doing Zinfandel. And
were you ramping up your volume? Or
we didn't.
Same.
We stayed the same for. I'm trying to think, when did I make more? It was probably after we got permitted. Then we just bumped it up like a half a ton, and what we could fit in that garage.
Okay.
And then, like I mentioned, in 2006 we got permitted. It was about a 6-month process to go through the whole spiel with the zoning administrator and the Board of Appeals. We had to go down and, plead our case why it was a good idea, and they sided.
Did you write
with
notes?
us.
Do you have those?
Oh, I have them somewhere. I do. I have them somewhere because I save everything.
Yeah.
And I did this and at the time there was not the internet like it is, right? So I was digging through City Hall and going down there to dig through different ordinances.
The rules.
Right? And the rules and regulations. And I found something. God, it was such a long time ago. I found something that was some kind of accessory use allowed this in this neighborhood with the same sort of scenario with the zoning. And that's what I presented. Oh. And the zoning administrator was like, "Where did you find that?" Like, he was standing at the podium next to me. We're side by side.
Incredulous.
Yes. It's like, how is this possible? So,
in your rules, mister.
It's in there. It's documented, and I found it somehow. I don't know. And I had to go up and down the neighborhood block to see if I'd have any resistance. I got signatures from everybody on our block.
From your neighbors.
Through the neighbors.
Yeah.
And, told them what I wanted to do. And everybody was like, sounds like a great idea.
Yes.
So I had a lot of support from the community,
Awesome.
which was amazing. And, I thought it wasn't going to happen at the time because I think there might have been 6 board members, and everybody was saying no. And then the last one who made the difference for the vote said, I think it might be kind of cool to have a winery in Bayview. He said it just sort of like that. And I really should find out that man's name again.
I was going to say, do you want a name drop?
Hey,
But
come
you don't.
down, let me thank you again.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what did it.
And that's what did it. And it allowed, I had restrictions, I had conditions. I could only make so much in that space.
Okay.
Couldn't have signage or sell out of the house. It was in our house. So
Yeah. But was the idea to ramp up production and sell your wine in local stores, or what was?
At the time, no.
Yeah.
Really, it wasn't. It was more like, let me just make what I'm making and see how I can move this and do some fun things around the neighborhood. And that's what we started doing. And then we
Okay.
became part of this weekly market at the Opera House.
Oh yeah.
It was every Thursday
Excellent.
from 6 to 9. All of these vendors would show up, and we'd be in that Opera House kind of peddling our wares.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it was, a pop-up before,
That was a word.
well, maybe not before it was a word, but it was early in the pop-up world.
Okay.
Like, that was more 2012.
I was going to say, I consider
2011, 2012.
the pop-up thing really took off in my memory after the 08, 09 recession,
Yes.
right? Because all these professionals were like, what the hell do I do?
What do we do now?
And people made chocolate, and people made wine, and da da da
Yeah.
da da.
Yeah.
People figured it out.
We had a nice variety of things. We had a baker. We had me. We had ceramics. There were probably 10 to 15 vendors every week, and they would just and the community came out for it.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Yeah.
And it kind of went downhill. It was called the Bayview Underground Food Scene.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever have heard of that,
I
but that
haven't.
was the start of, maybe it wasn't the start, but that was clearly a group that was managed by actually Andrea Baker, who's with the Amaji Kitchen now,
Okay.
and Barbara Ockel, who was the director of the Opera House at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It was fun. It was a
Wow.
fun weekly event.
Yeah. And you said 2012-ish?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think 2012, because then the Opera House, it moved to Dogpatch, to Pier 70,
Okay.
because the Opera House had to go through some renovations.
Yeah.
And it went downhill from there because nobody wanted to go down there to support the Bayview people, but it was still a space for us to try to expand on what the organization was trying to accomplish with pop-up and supporting small business and all of that.
Supporting each other.
Supporting each other.
Yeah.
But it didn't, Pier 70 was a mess at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just now kind of
Yeah.
coming into its own
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, if we were doing that there now, that'd be amazing. But at the time, it was a space for us, to continue what we were trying to do. Yeah.
So let's hear the story of how we get from, I guess, Dogpatch
Well, I
to
guess.
where we are on the
back
corner of
back to
Williams
Bayview.
and
Well,
Third.
as a result of that Bayview Underground Food Scene group and the market that we were doing at the Opera House, I had met a baker that was part of the group, and she and I opened up together next door.
Okay.
So we shared that retail space.
Okay.
I had the wine bar that in the back.
back.
And where I have my little market in the front is where she had her bakery.
Okay.
And we shared that space for a good 7 years.
Yeah, when did you
I would say.
open?
2015.
15.
We opened that market.
Coming up on 10 years.
Yeah, it's coming on 10 years.
Wait, do you know, like, a date or a month?
Oh, it was July.
Okay.
Yeah, July.
We'll have to rerun this episode
Okay.
to celebrate.
To celebrate. That'd be
Yeah, I
great.
don't know if you're celebrating. I'll celebrate for you.
That'd be wonderful. 10
Yeah.
years, I know. And
That's
this
a big
space,
deal.
That is a big deal. We've been there for 10 years, 2015. It worked while it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And the bakery moved out a couple years into COVID. But prior to that, I had taken over this space that we're sitting in 2017.
Okay.
And we moved the winery out of the garage.
That's when it happened.
To this in 2017.
All right.
But we didn't move it. See, I took the lease over, but this place needed an overhaul.
Yeah.
So it didn't open until December of 2020.
Oh, that's an interesting time.
Because it took a few years and then COVID hit.
That's a really interesting time. Yeah.
It was unbelievable that we didn't ever close our business during all of that.
Oh, wow.
You know, we started our little mini market in the bar.
Because it's a market.
When the bar had to close.
Yeah.
So 2020 early, we did all of that shelving on the countertops, and, you know, we just pivoted like everybody had to.
Was the deli always a part of it? Or do you even call that a deli where you prepare food?
Then. It wasn't until we moved in here.
Okay.
And like I said, the construction on that didn't complete and get cleared until December of 2020, and that's when we opened the market here. But the bar was closed still because of COVID. And we had the parklet, and you know, you were able to be in, and then you weren't. It went back and forth. I don't know how many times we had to adjust in that first year of 2020.
Yeah.
And then when we opened up the market down here, we it's sort of a quasi deli. We weren't slicing meat. We weren't doing down here.
Where we are.
So what we would do is make the food here and shuttle it up there to the bar.
Okay.
You know, and then when the bakery moved out, we had the opportunity to keep that whole space, and we moved all of the food operation in there, which is what you were familiar with.
Yes. See, I didn't realize there was a bakery.
Yeah, there was another business in there prior.
Okay.
And when they moved out, like I said, we took it over. And just this space now is coming to be something new hopefully by springtime.
Excellent.
Yes. Another little wine bar operation.
I love it.
Yeah.
Are you the sole owner? I mean, it is your name on the business, but you started it with someone else.
No. Oh, no. No.
It was always your business.
It's always been my business, and we just shared a space. We just shared a lease. So there were two businesses in there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that catch us up? I mean...
I think so. I think it does. This is where we are today. We're in that location at where the bar and the market is, and the winery is under a little bit of a transition right now. So that's where we are.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Do you want to tell folks maybe an address and some store hours and where they can find information and things like that?
Our website is grattawines.com. We are currently operating out of 5273 3rd Street in Bayview. We have a rear entrance at 2022 Lane, which is primarily the front door where everybody comes and goes from. And in that space, we have a little market. We have food for in-house and to go, and we have the little wine bar for you can just sit and enjoy and have a flight of our wine and others. So we do offer Italian varietals now and white wines, which we don't make. So we have a variety of wines and beer, local beers as well.
And I'm just going to highly recommend that people do exactly what you're talking about, because I love this place.
Thank you.
I love what you do. Can we end? So every season on this podcast, I have a theme. This season that we're in, the theme is Keep It Local. What does that mean to you?
Keeping it local means continuing to do what I've always done in Bayview, which is collaborate with other small businesses. I support others. For example, I have products of other small makers in my market.
Including how I found you, which is through my friend Annika, who does Bunjerk.
That's right, Bunjerk.
That's how I found you.
She's next on my list to bring that in, if she can just fit me into her busy schedule. Annika, I'm talking to you. And others like Bayview Pasta, Nixta Foods, his vegan pupusas. I have pizza place on Noriega, frozen par-cooked pies on the menu or frozen to take to go. And, we do our meatballs and all of that out of the freezer to take with you and, easy prepare meals for your home. So yeah, that's what I would say as far as local, is just continuing to collaborate with other small businesses in the area.
That was Barbara Gratta. Next week on the podcast, meet and get to know San Francisco born and raised comedian / union organizer, Nato Green. Episode 8 drops next Tuesday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 7th season, we have more than 220 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please, please, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at storiedsf, and reach out to us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be extra careful crossing the street, and keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. See you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.